So hey guys, and welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be doing a machine from the Proving Grounds practice called Nickel. It's a Windows machine and it's rated intermediate by OffSec and hard by the community, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. So this is going to be a walkthrough of how I exploited the machine and how I gained access and the steps I took to escalate the privileges as well. So feel free to join in and feel free to use this video as a walkthrough as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to scan the IP address, and the IP address for this machine is displayed right up here. And it turns out that IP address is 192.168.229.99. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to come to my terminal here, and I'm going to use a tool called Nmap. So now if you don't know what Nmap is basically a network scanning tool that you use to identify all sorts of open ports and services running on a target machine. Nmap can also be used for Nmap can also be used for subnets, but that is a thing for another time. So let's run our IP against Nmap. So we're going to be using Nmap SC SV, and then I'm going to put my IP address right there, 192.168.229.99 VV. So if you don't know what SC and SV stands for, SC basically means use the default scripts in Nmap to scan this target, and SV basically stands for service versioning. So this helps in identifying the versions of all the running softwares or services on this IP address. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to wait for a bit. And there we go. We've already got a few hits. So we can see here that we have port 3389, which is a default for RDP. And then we have 22, which again is a default for SSH, I believe. We have 21, which is for FTP. We have 139, which is for TCP. We have 135 again. We have 139, which is for SMB. And then we have 135, which is, I believe, could be for either maybe Kerberos or something. I don't know. Let's wait for the scan to finish fully. And then 445, which again stands for a SMB port. So I believe we can start enumerating right away. So we'll start off with the FTP port. Now, whenever you see an FTP port open on a machine like this, the first thing you got to do is try to log in with anonymous credentials. And to do that, we're going to use the FTP commands. So we're going to use FTP. And we're going to take the IP address from here. We're going to put that there. Press enter, and there we go. It asks us for a username. So I'm going to type in anonymous. And the password for anonymous, I'm going to put in a random password. Press enter, and we're not allowed to enter. So that means that there's no way that we can access the FTP without the correct credentials. So let's exit from there. And we have our full port scan available now. Let's go. So we also have port 8089 open, and that looks like a HTTP port. So it looks really suspicious. So let's just go ahead and enumerate that. To do that, I'm going to come to my Firefox browser here. I'm going to put in HTTP, followed by my IP address. I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to put in 8089 at the end. So you're going to put a colon and 8089 to specify the port you want to use. Press enter, and there we go. So this is basically a DevOps dashboard where you can list current deployments, list running processes, and list active nodes. So if I click on this, it should show me all of the current deployments. So clicking these didn't get me anywhere. Whenever I click this, it just shows a very random IP address down below, like how when I click this, you can see 169.254.144.247. So the next possible thing to do is to just take a look at the page source code, just to look at what's happening behind the scenes and where exactly are these buttons trying to take us. So I'm going to look at the page source. And here in the page source, it shows us that we have an IP address which is 169.254.144.247, and it's trying to take us to a service on port 33333 and that's 5 times, and to this endpoint called list current deployments. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click on that, copy this link. Just going to copy this link. I'm going to click on it and see where it takes us. So it's stuck again. I don't think it's going to take us anywhere. So I'm just going to cancel that. And instead of trying to play around in the browser, I'm going to come here and I'm going to do a thing called curl http 169.254.144.247.12345 and list current deployments and press enter. Now you'll see that it gets a bit hangy over here. That means that there's actually no response coming from the endpoint. But now let me just try doing the same command, but with our IP address instead and with port number 3333. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do curl http 192.168.45. No, wait, my bad. 192.168.229.99. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. List current deployments. Press enter, and we get a endpoint answer, which is we get HTML back as a response, which says cannot get this endpoint, which is the /list current deployment endpoint. So now let's rerun this command, but with a get header and see what happens. I'm going to put a get command here. I'm going to use the X flag to use the get command, and then I'm going to press enter. And again, we get again we get an error saying we cannot list the current deployments. Let's try that again, but this time for the list running procs. So let's see if this endpoint gives us any good outputs that we can use. It's running procs. Nope. Neither does that. And maybe the last one might. List active nodes. Nope. And neither does that. So now we know that we can't get. So let's try a post. Let's try a post to this endpoint. I'm going to write poster. I'm going to press enter. And we get an error that says that we need a header that is the content length. So we have to append our content length at the end of this request. And to do that, I'm going to run the same command again, but I'm going to put h content length 0. And if you don't know what h stands for, h basically stands for header, right? And I'm going to press enter, and we get an error saying not implemented. Now let me try that for the other endpoints, mainly the list running procs one. List running procs. Press enter, and there we go. We get an output. We basically get an output of all the services running on this machine. So we have a idle process, a system registry, SMS. We have lsass.exe. This is very useful when it comes to dumping credentials. Then dwm.exe. We have PowerShell, CMD, and we have something here that looks really interesting, which is we have a username, and we have something that looks like an encrypted password, or maybe it might be a password. So I'm going to take this password, I'm going to copy it, and from this command we can see that this is the credentials you're going to be using for SSH. So assuming that this credential is not encrypted at first, I'm going to try to log into the SSH. I'm going to try to log into the SSH port using the username Aria, and this is the password. So let's get into it. I'm going to open up a new terminal here. I'm going to do SSH Aria, at 192.168.229.99, and can type in yes, and it's going to ask me for a password. I'm going to come here, copy this. I'm going to paste it here, and we get a permission denied. That means that that password right there is encrypted. To decrypt it, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to check whether it's base 64 encrypted or not. Now, if it's base 64 encrypted, it's going to be really easy for us to decrypt. So let's just see if it's base 64 encrypted or not. To do that, I'm going to use the command echo. I'm going to put that encrypted password in the middle of those two apostrophes there. I'm going to put a pipe command and then base 64. Base 64. The D flag basically stands for decrypt. I'm going to press enter, and there we go. We get a clear text password, which is no wise sloop theory 139. Now we can use this credential here, this password here, to log in to the SSH server. So I'm going to log in as Aria, press enter. Hopefully the username is right. Yep. I'm going to copy the password, put that there, and we're in. Aria at nickel. Now the first thing that we've got to do is we've got to get the flag. So in Windows machines, the flag is mostly located inside the desktop directory. I'm going to do dir, I'm going to do type local.txt, and there we go, we get our first flag. I'm going to submit that, and there we go. We've gotten our first flag in this whole series. Now let's think of a way to go from area to administrator. And to do that, the first thing that I'm going to check is our permissions that we have on this machine, or the permissions that we have on this machine. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to use the command whoami/priv. Now, whoami basically tells you who you are on the system, and priv will tell you the authority or the privileges you have enabled on the system. So I'm going to press enter, and it tells us that we have these 5 privileges, which are not so great. Nothing useful or interesting here that might help us in escalating to root. I'm going to do cd dot dot dir again and just look for any interesting things on this system. There's an FTP here, so we're going to go in. So we're going to go into the FTP, and we're going to check it out, and we get something called infrastructure.pdf. All right. So let's just see what's there. Now, since we're inside SSH, we cannot open this. Even if I do a type, I shouldn't be able to read it, but let's see if I can read it or not. So, yeah, and yeah, I'm not able to read it. So, as seen before, we have port 3389 open, and that is RDP mostly. So I'm going to xfree RDP free into this machine, and xfree RDP into this machine. So v 192.168.229.99. U is going to be area, and B is going to be, oh, I forgot the password. My bad, guys. Oh, here it is. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put that here. Press enter and trust the certificate. Press enter and we get a connection failed. So let me try that again. Connection failed again. Just keep doing it maybe until it works. Get the connection failed, so that's not working. So we'll have to work it in the SSH itself. Let's do a dir again to see if there's anything else in here. Nothing much. Let's go into users, into area, into the documents folder just to see if we have anything interesting there. Nothing interesting here, nothing there. So now that we're not able to find a possible escalation pathway, the next step would be to upload a winpiece.exe onto this target system. So if you don't know what a winpiece.exe script is, it's basically an executable that you use to find out possible privilege escalation pathways on a Windows system. So now let's get our winpiece.exe from our local machine onto our target machine, and let's use it to enumerate for some possible attack pathways. So now WinPiece scripts or executables are always inbuilt into Kali Linux. So you just have to type in the WinPiece command and it takes you to the folder where it's stored. And you can see here that we have multiple WinPiece executables, including a script, which is a PowerShell script. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a Python web server here on port 8000. I'm going to host that here, and then I'm going to come to my Windows target machine. I'm going to cd into aria, I'm going to do a dir, and then I'm going to do something like maybe PowerShell EP bypass, because to run the curl command, we're going to need PowerShell. We're going to do that, and we have PowerShell rights on our machine. Now I'm going to do something called a curl command, which is to basically copy files or to get content from the internet. So I'm going to do curl HTTP, my local IP address, which is 192.168.45.182, and the port I'm hosting this web server on, which is 8000. And then I'm going to put the name of the file I chose, which is winpiece.any.exe. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to use the O command. The O command basically stands for output, basically the file to which you want to write the output of this file to. So I'm going to name that file as winpiece.exe. The output file is winpiece.exe. So this command will basically take the winpiece any.exe from my local machine, parse all of its content, and then write its content out to the winpiece.exe file that I'm going to create on this Windows machine. So now I'm going to press enter. I'm going to wait for it to copy. As you can see, it's copying up right here now, and I do a dir, and bang, there we go. We have it copied. Now let's run it and wait for the results. So to run this executable, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do dot and a backslash and then winpiece.exe, press enter, and there we go. So if you look at the documentation up here, if you see red, it means that there is a special privilege over an object or something is misconfigured. If it's green, it means that it's well defended. So in simple terms, red equals to a possible escalation pathway and green equals to no escalation pathway. So let's just check this out. We have the username here, system, no antivirus detected. That is great news for us. So we won't have to do any antivirus evasion on this, right? So we just found a very interesting file, which is a console host underscore history.txt. So maybe this file might contain all the commands, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, some passwords or some sort of hints as to what Arya did on the machine that we can use to escalate our privileges to root. So I'm going to copy this, and once it finishes running, I'm going to just do a type to that and check what's there. We have authenticated users allowed to create NTFS. Nothing too interesting. No possible escalation pathways. Ari has allowed all access. Nico. Nothing too interesting that we can exploit. Nothing too interesting. So I'm going to come down. Oh, I'm going to come down here and just wait for the scan to finish. Oh, and we found something interesting. As we can see here, we have port number 80 that is listening, but our nmap scan did not pick that up. As you can see here, our nmap scan did not pick that up. So that means that this is a local port and it's hosting a web server. And this might be our possible path to root. So in order for us to now exploit this, we'll have to do something known as SSH port forwarding. So now that we identify that we have a local HTTP service running that's not exposed to the internet, the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a look at its content. So I'm going to be using the curl command to do this. So I'm going to be running the command curl http // 192.127.0.0.1 and then port number 80. Click enter and we should get this response. Content cannot be passed because Internet Explorer is not enabled. Okay, so we go ahead. HTTP 127.0.0.180. Nope, doesn't work. But if you remember earlier, we had discovered a PDF inside the FTP folder. So let's just go back to that. dir and go back into the FTP. dir, and there we go. We had discovered a PDF file inside the FTP directory on this machine, but we're not able to open it. So in order for us to access this file, we'll have to access it through the FTP server or the FTP service. And to do that, I'm going to open up the FTP service again. I'm going to use, and this time we have credentials, so we can straight away use the credentials of ARIA. So I'm going to be using ARIA and the password. Geez, I think I forgot the password again. Oh, no, here it is. I'm going to be using this as the password. Going to be putting that in. Pushing on enter, and we're in. There we go. And now from here, we can download this. We can download this PDF, and I can exit from here. Close. Let's go. Now let's go to my attack machine's directory opener and go into downloads. And oh wait, actually I think it's going to be in desktop in Nickel. We'll open that up, and there we go. The document infrastructure.pdf is locked and requires a password before it can be opened. So now what we have to do is we have to use a tool called John the Ripper to crack the password of this file right here. Right? And to do that, we're going to be using a little tool called PDF to John. Let me see if I have that installed. Yep. PDF to John. PDF to. So now I just pulled up the documentation for PDF to John, and what it tells us is to use the command PDF to John followed by the file name. And what this basically does is it's going to generate a hash for this file, and it's going to store this hash inside a special file called hash or hash.txt. You call it whatever you want. So I'm going to store my hash inside a file called hash.txt. I'm going to press enter, and there we go. Do an lsla command just to see if it worked, and bang, it worked. So we have our hash of this PDF file right now stored inside this hash.txt. So I'm going to run the cat command just to take a look inside, and there we go. We have our hash. Now, in order to decrypt this hash, I'm going to be using a tool called John the Ripper. Now, John the Ripper is a really powerful tool, and sometimes I feel that it's more easier to use and more beginner friendly than Hashcat. So if you're a beginner at pen testing, I highly recommend that you start off with John the Ripper. So now to decrypt the file, I'm going to be using the command John hash.txt, which is our hash file right here. And then I'm going to pass in my word list, which is rocky.txt and can be found in this location. And then I'm going to press enter and wait for a bit. And we get an error saying that it cannot detect our hash type. So to do that, to figure out what exactly is wrong with this command, I'm going to come to Google. It's going to say John the Ripper can't find identify syntax, identify type. Hash type. Yeah. So we got to use John format PDF in order for it to work. So I'm going to do a clear here, and then I'm going to rerun the command this time with the format PDF flag. So format is PDF, press enter, and we get a error. Loaded one password hash, proceeding with the word list, press Q, Control C to abort, session complete. So we're not able to decrypt it for some reason. Let me try that again. Let me try rerunning the John command with this time with a best 64 flag, but that gives us an error. So let me just pull up the John, the cheat sheet, and it should give us that. Oh, wait, it's on the top there. John the Ripper cheat sheet. And you can see here rules. Yes, so we got to use this command right here. So we're going to run John the Ripper. We're going to put the rules as best 64. So rules best 64. Press enter. And I just realized that our problem is with our word list and not with John the Ripper. So we need to fix up a word list. It's saying that we have an invalid UTF-8 scene reading on this. So we got to go ahead and fix that up. So a quick Google search shows us that in order for us to clean up the rocky.txt file, what we got to do is we got to actually convert it to valid UTF-8, and it's telling us to run these commands. So let me just copy this command and go into the folder here, press enter, and we get a permission denied. So I'm going to do sudo, and then I'm going to put that there, press enter, and we get permission denied again. So I'm going to do a sudo su, and now I'm going to paste that here, press enter, and there we go. We get a rocky underscore UTF-8, which is almost the same size. So maybe this should work now with John the Ripper. So I'm going to come back to my home folder, onto my desktop, to my nickel folder. And what I'm going to do is rerun John the Ripper command. So John format is PDF. And the word list is USR share word lists. And I'm going to copy the file name from here, put that here. I'm going to press enter and we show. Okay, my bad. I forgot to put the hash file again. So I'm going to put the hash file at the end over there. Press enter. And we don't get any printouts. Doesn't seem to be working as expected today. Let's try rerunning the command, but this time with rules enabled as well. Maybe that will give us a better rules best 64. Press enter. And we seem to be making some sort of progress here and still nothing. So now that we have failed at decrypting the PDF file that we found, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to access the website directly itself from the terminal using the curl command. So to do that, I'm going to be using curl. Wait, it's stuck. Okay, curl http 127.0.0.1/ and then I'm going to be using the flag use basic parsing. Press enter and we get something like that. But the problem here is it doesn't show us the HTML. So in order for us to see the full content of this link or this service, I'm going to be using a different command, and this is a command I got off the internet. What it does is it takes your encoded text. It basically takes in your encoded text from here, which is the invoke web request, and it converts it into readable English. All right. So if we run this command on our own, all it's going to do is display a bunch of numbers. But if you want it to be in a readable English format, you have to use this system text encoding, which would actually decrypt the output of this command. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter, and there we go. We get something like this. So now the next thing that I want to do here is I want to test this endpoint out for a possible command injection. So I'm going to rerun this command, but this time I'm going to put a question mark at the back here, followed by a simple who am I command. I'm going to press enter, and it gives us that. So as you can see here, I did that, and we get nt-authority/system. That tells us that we have a possible command injection vulnerability here. All right. So now what we can do is we can try to get a reverse shell in here. We can try to get a reverse shell in here. We can try to put a command in here to execute a reverse shell and then catch that reverse shell on our local machine. So I'm going to start a listener up here, a netcat listener here on port number 1234. Press enter, and then I'm going to this little website known as revshells.com, but first I'll need to start my VPN. So now that we've found a possible command injection vulnerability within this already existing local application on our Windows target machine, what we can do is we can basically go to revshells.com and generate a new payload, insert that payload in here, and use that to get a reverse shell on our Kali machine. All right. So, but for some reason, my previous instance died on me, so I'll have to relog in right now. So let me just do that quickly. SSH aria at 120.99 with the IP address 120.99. Yes, and then put the password in again. Put the password in again. Press enter. Right, there we go. I'm gonna do a PowerShell BP bypass, and there we go, and we're in. So I'm just going to copy this command here. Going to put that here. Going to press enter, but I don't think it'll work because it's a bit erroneous. So I'm just going to copy that again. Maybe this one this time. I'm going to copy a bit of that. Copy that. CLS. Put that here. And I'm just going to remove them down. Yes, 1. And enter. Positional parameter cannot be found by accessing slash. So, yes. The mistake that I made. So let me just put the slash back where it belongs, and there we go. So now let's execute our reverse shell. So first I'm going to be doing nc and lbp 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to be starting in netcat listener here, pressing enter, and then I'm going to come to my repshells.com and copy the attack payload. And come here. I'm going to put a question mark right after the forward slash. And paste it right there. Right. And let's press enter. And we get an error saying that an ampersand character is not allowed. So we just do a double URL encode, or maybe even go for something that's better. Maybe this. So let's try a URL encoded base 64 version of the exploit. So I'm going to put that. I'm going to remove this. And then I'm going to paste that there. I'm going to press post. Okay, put that. But going to remove our exploit again. 1. All right. I'm gonna copy this. Oh, sorry. R is actually 198. I'm gonna copy this. Gonna copy here. Going to put that there. All right. Then I'm going to press enter. And if we come here, we should have gotten our reverse shell. Yes, there we go. We've gotten our reverse shell, but it doesn't seem to be too stable. Kind of slow, but we got reverse shell. And I ran the who am I command above, and we are anti-authority system. Therefore, we can officially claim this machine as rooted. So first, let's wait for the thing to stop. Now let's navigate to the users/administrator directory, dir, go into desktop, dir, and get the proof flag. So there we go. We got our final proof flag, and we can officially mark nickel as rooted. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.